Everybody up here in just a minute. What we're talking about find your place. But let me just tell you a little bit about some things that happened at the Peterson house, which is our house, if you don't know that. This last month, we had a birthday at the end of August and one in September, and so we celebrated both of them this month. And it's interesting because Karis, our 9-year-old, she had a friend over, and we had a little bit of cake, a little bit of ice cream, and it was just that. And she told Sherry the other day, my wife, she said, that was the most amazing birthday party ever. Like one friend, cake, ice cream, and a sleepover. She was just so excited, so gratified. And as a dad, I'm like, I love that kid, just simple, right? And then, so Dallas turned 13. And so now we have 3 teenagers in our home. It's an incredible experience. And so she turned 13. And this past Friday, we had 25 people in our house, probably like 15 middle school girls. And it was just insane. Like literally insane. And I don't know if you guys know how middle school girls greet one another. Does anyone know how that works? This is literally how it works. You're the closest one. So, you could have just seen them 2 hours ago, right? And it's just like, and it's like, oh my God. So we got 20 times over the course of 20 minutes as each person rolled in, there's all that. And I had a friend who was coming, an adult, who was coming, and he texted me, he said, do you need a stiff drink to get you through the evening? I said, absolutely, thank you. And so it was a crazy evening. So we, throughout the evening, I would periodically disappear to our room to breathe deeply and refocus, recenter, right? No, the truth of the matter is it was a lot of fun, but it was so different. It was a glow. They had, by the way, I forgot to tell you, it was a glow party, so we had to replace all the bulbs in our house, all the light white bulbs with black bulbs. There was neon stuff all over. It's just so different. But Dallas, she's a great kid. She's so much fun, and she was so satisfied afterwards. She's like, that was a great party. They're so different. One kid has one person, cake, ice cream, and a sleepover. It was the best party ever. The other one has 25 people in the house. We've got to change light bulbs. Everything's glittering. We're screaming and yelling. And afterwards, she's like, that's the best party ever. It was just amazing to watch the diversity in my own house. Just crazy, right? If you have more than one kid, you've experienced that, right? If you work, if you're involved with people in any way, you've seen the diversity and all the craziness. The truth of the matter is, though, even though there are these extreme differences, we're all still family. So Dallas is my daughter, and I absolutely adore that kid. Love her. Wouldn't trade her for anything. Karis is my daughter, and I absolutely adore her. Love her. Wouldn't trade her for anything. I just adore these kids, and yet they're so different, right? So diverse, and yet we're family. Now, I don't know if you know this, but this is what the church is supposed to be like. You know that? The church is supposed to be filled with all kinds of crazy, diverse, all kinds of different people, right? That's the way the church is supposed to be like. All difference, but still family. Now, this has been a crazy week for our country, hasn't it? Has anybody been watching the whole Judge Kavanaugh stuff? Have you guys been keeping track of the news? Man, I have. I'm a political junkie. I'm in it up to my eyeballs. I was literally mowing the lawn this week with my headphones on, listening to the hearings, right? Because I didn't want to miss a thing. And when it got really interesting, I pull up my phone to stop and watch the video of the C-SPAN, right? So I'm watching this. But I just tell you, as I watch this whole thing, my heart just hurts for our country, right? Because we're just broken. And it doesn't even matter where you fall on this, in terms of this particular situation. Our country's just broken, right? And there's so many things that divide us. Literally so many things that divide us. Politics divide us, right? Race divides us. Gender divides us. Economics divide us. College football teams divide us, right? We're just divided. And unfortunately, our divisions have become so strong that we can't be in the same room with. Like, if you're a Democrat, you can't stand Republicans. And if you like country music, you can't stand rap music, and you can't be in the same room with those kind of people. And if you're conservative and white, you probably aren't going to fit in a college classroom on the West Coast. I mean, it's just like their divisions have become something that's so ugly and so mean. It just hurts. I know it's not supposed to be this way, right? And I've been thinking a lot about that this week, and it's occurred to me, like, really, the only way this changes, you can't pass laws to change this. You can't change this division through legislation. You can't pass this division through mandating behavioral changes. You can't do it. The only way that this angst in our country changes is through a spiritual overhaul. Like, we used to call that a revival. You guys remember what revival is? Like, awakening the dead soul within us, right? Something spiritual on the inside. And really, the catalyst for that whole thing is the church. Like, the church is the one place where God has said, in all of the world, the church is the one place where we ought to be able to walk in and see all kinds of different people loving one another and doing life together and encouraging one another and building one another up. We ought to see different races. We ought to see different genders. We ought to see different economic statuses. We ought to see different football teams. We ought to see different politics. You know, you can be a Democrat and be a Christian. Can I get a witness? You can also be a Republican and be sensitive. Can I get a witness? Amen. I mean, it's just true, gang. There's no place in the Bible where it outlines all of these different minutiae, the things that we fight over. And as I'm listening and watching our culture, I'm realizing the church is a place that ought to be and can be different and better. A place that offers hope and love and security and safety. A place where we can be honest and still loved. So we started this series a few weeks ago called Find Your Place. And we kind of kicked off from this verse. It's in Ephesians. St. Paul was writing this, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 16. He says this: Jesus makes the whole body fit together perfectly. All right? So in this particular story, Paul was saying that the church is like a body, right? So you're an arm, and Fitz, you're a foot, and you're an eyeball, and so we have all these different pieces, and they fit together to make this perfect body, right? And so Paul says Jesus makes the whole body fit together perfectly. This is important. As each part does its own special work, it helps the other parts grow. So that the whole body is, say it with me, healthy and growing and full of love. So God takes all of us different kinds of people. He puts us together in this one body. And you do your piece, and I do my piece. I find my place, I do my thing. And when I'm doing my thing, and when you're doing your thing, we all of a sudden create a place that's healthy and growing and full of love. I got this interesting thing going on right now. I've had to take the contact out of my left eye. So I got a contact in my right eye, no contact in my left eye, right? And I have to have it out for a couple of months. So, I mean, it's like this is 2020 and this is 2400. So it's not bad, except when I'm up close, it affects depth perception, right? Which is weird because that happened to me a couple times last week, and a couple weird things have happened throughout the week. But last week in particular, I was standing beside somebody, and someone else came up, and they stuck their hand out, and I thought they were going for my hand to shake. So I stuck my hand out. The odd thing was they were actually shooting for that individual, right? And so I completely missed, and I looked like a weirdo because I missed them by like a mile, right? Mine said their hands moving, you go too, right? But it was just, and the issue there is that one of my eyes wasn't working as it should. But when they're both working, the body works together and it does well. And so Paul is essentially saying, look, every piece of the body has a part to play. And when every piece plays its part, the body does just fine, right? Even though there's all kinds of differences, the body does just fine. So St. Paul, the guy who wrote this a long time ago, he started churches, right? And his modus operandi, he would go into places where there were no churches, they didn't know about Christianity, they didn't know about Jesus, and he would go into these places and he would start a church, And or he would go into these places and he would convincingly tell the story of Jesus. He would say, hey, there's a guy named Jesus. He's the Son of God. Came into this world with a perfect life. Died on a cross for our sins. And if we believe that, God will forgive us of our sins, will move inside of us and empower us to live this new life. So he would tell this story. And then he would invite people to believe in Jesus and follow his teachings. And oftentimes people would say, that makes sense to me. I'm in. I do believe that happened. And I do actually want to follow the teachings of Jesus. And so Paul then would start a church, like a group of people like us. He would start a church where people could come together regularly. They could encourage one another. They could build each other up. They could learn how to live a life that honors God. And a place where people were healthy and growing and full of love. Like he would establish that, and then he would leave. Right? He would say, all right, you guys are good. I'm going to go on to another place and start the process again. What he would do, though, is once he'd been gone a while, he would check in on that new church. He would send somebody back to see, how you guys doing? You got any questions? Are there any problems that you have? Is there anything that you need? And then in response to their questions or in response to their needs, he would write them a letter. And we have a number of those letters that make up now a part of our scriptures. And oftentimes Paul in these letters, he would answer their questions. He would explain the implications of Jesus' life and his death, or he would give them instructions on how to live as a follower of Jesus. Now, one of the common things that Paul would talk about in his letters to these new churches, these groups of people who were all kinds of different experiences and all kinds of different belief systems and all kinds of different people, right? He would often talk to them about this idea of spiritual gifts or abilities. I mean, have you heard of spiritual gifts? I don't ever assume that everyone has, right? So spiritual gifts or abilities that God gives us. And Paul would often talk about that to these churches. And he regularly would encourage everyone in the church. So if Paul were writing a letter to us, he would say, look, God has given you an ability, he's given you a gift, and you need to find that thing. You need to find your place and begin to do that thing in the church for the church that God has given you. So he wrote this letter to a church in Corinth. Now, Corinth was a crazy city, all right? Let me just kind of really quickly give you a sense of what that looks like. If you were to open up 1 Corinthians, Paul would start chapter 1 by saying to the church, he's like, you are holy people. So just for a minute, I just want you to stop for a moment and think about yourself, right? And receive those words. You are a holy person, right? That's what Paul says. You're a holy person. God has enriched you in every way. God has given you every spiritual gift you need to be a healthy, growing community filled with love, right? God has given you everything you need. So he starts off like, you guys are really extraordinary people. And then he says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. He said, now stop fighting. Right? Like, stop fighting. You're just fighting each other. Like, you're holy people. God has blessed you. God has given you everything you need. But by God, stop fighting. It's like, stop arguing and nitpicking and tearing each other down. Okay? Stop choosing sides is essentially what he said. He said, some of you in this church that God has blessed, he's given you all these gifts. Some of you are saying, well, my favorite preacher is Paul. And some of you are saying, well, my favorite preacher is Apollos. And some of you are saying, well, I follow Joel Osteen. He was actually alive back then. I don't know if you guys knew that. But, he said, look, you guys are just nitpicking each other over your differences. Stop it. Stop nitpicking over the differences. And then, this is where it gets fun. In chapter 5, Paul says, hey, there's a guy in the church that's having sex with his stepmom, and you guys are actually, like, proud of that. He says, don't be proud of that. Stop that. Like, don't be proud of that, right? So, I always think about that when I read that. I'm like, that was a pretty crazy church. Right? And yet, Paul had looked at them and said, hey, you're God's people. You're holy people. You are God's people. God has blessed you. And then as I start reading through the letter, I'm like, these are also pretty dysfunctional people. Right? And then he says in chapter 6, he's like, look, stop taking each other to court and suing each other. Stop it. Stop sleeping around with everybody. Right? he goes on a little bit, talks about a few other things. In chapter 11, he's like, look, you guys, let's talk about the Lord's Supper. You know how sometimes we serve communion up here? We have the Lord's Supper up here. We'll have bread and we'll have wine. He said, well, here's what's happening at your church in Corinth. He said, whenever it's time to serve the Lord's Supper, some of you guys will run ahead of everybody else and eat all the bread and drink all the drink because you're hungry. He's like, don't do that. Like, can you imagine if we're like, all right, we're going to have communion today, and we set up the bread, we set up the drink, and all of a sudden, like, I don't know, Stacey Jones just runs ahead of everybody, right? He runs up here and he grabs the bread and he wolfs it down. And sorry, I'm picking on Stacey. You don't deserve that. But like Paul's like, hey, some of you guys are doing that. It's crazy. Don't do that, right? So again, he starts off by saying, you're an amazing group of people. You're holy. God has blessed you. You have everything you need to be a healthy, growing community full of love. But you got some crazies among you that you got some crazy stuff among you that you got to work through. All right? That kind of gives me hope, right? Because I feel like probably every church has some crazy dysfunctions that we need to work through. But then he comes to chapter 12, all right? That's where I want to hang out a little bit today. Here's what he says. Now, dear brothers and sisters, regarding your question about special abilities or the spiritual gifts that God gives us, I don't want you to misunderstand this. This is chapter 12, verse 2. You know that when you were still pagans, or when you were not connected to God, you were led astray, you swept along in worshiping speechless idols. I mean, you were just all over the place. Some of you were religious, some of you were not, some of you were just all over the place. He said, I want you to know that no one speaking by the Spirit of God will curse Jesus. All right? In other words, if you have the Spirit of God in you, none of you will say, Jesus, take him or leave him. I don't really need him. He's not that important in my life. Right? Paul said, if you have the Spirit of God in you, that won't happen. And then he says, and no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. In other words, no one can say, hey, Jesus is a really important person in my life, and I'm following him. No one can say that unless you have the Holy Spirit of God in you. Now, here's why I say that. In any church, there will be people who will say, Jesus is really important in my life. And I do really want to follow him. And Paul is essentially saying, hey, look, if you say that, that's what you have. You have at least have that in common with the person who sits next to you, right? So I would just say in this room, there are probably a good number of men and women who would say, look, Jesus is an important person in my life. I believe in him, and I want to follow his teachings. And you may vote Democrat. But there's probably also a libertarian in this room who would say, Jesus is a really important person in my life, and I want to follow him. Paul would say, hey, you have that in common, and that is really important, right? You've got that, you've got Jesus in your life. Does this make sense? You've got that in your life, and that's really important. Hang on to that point of commonality. And then Paul says, hey, regarding these spiritual gifts that God has given, this is really, I want to really zero in on this. He says, regarding those spiritual gifts, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. So there are different kinds. Now, he's going to go on and list 9 different kinds of spiritual gifts. I'm not going to read through all those. Here's what I want you to know. God has given each person a gift or an ability, and there are different kinds. Right? Now, here's why this is important. Because some denominations get hung up on one specific gift. For instance, Pentecostals have a tendency to get hung up on the gift of tongues. Right? It's a gift, but it's not the only gift. Paul says there are, say it with me, different kinds. It's a gift. Some churches tend to get hung up on a particular gift. I'm thinking one in instance. In Chicago, this church is hung up, or they really focus on the gift of leadership. It's a wonderful gift. It's a necessary gift, but it's not the only gift. Paul says there are different kinds of gifts. And so here's what I want to say to you in this room. Part of finding your place is this. God brings a bunch of people into the same room. We have all kinds of different in this room. age, gender, political preferences, race, socioeconomic status, all kinds of differences. God brings us all into this room and says, listen, I've given each one of you an ability, and it's different. So your gift is different than your gift, which is different than your gift, which is different than your gift. But they all come from the same Spirit. They all come from the same God. Now, the next thing Paul says is this. There are different kinds of service, but we serve the same Lord. Now, essentially, here's what this means. Paul says, look, each one of you, there are different kinds of gifts in this room. And there are different kinds of service. And basically what that means is there are different environments in which your gift is going to be played out. So some of you have been given a gift or an ability that works best in a garage. Some of you have received an ability that works best in a studio. Some of us have a gift or an ability that works best on a stage, talking. I mean, here's the truth. If your car needs fixed, I do not have that ability. I do not have that gift. You do not want me under your hood. If you ever see me with the hood up, you just know I'm faking. All right? That's just the truth. I do not have that ability. I do not have that skill set. However, there are men, maybe even ladies in this room, who have an ability. God has given them a special ability to lift up a hood and to listen and know by simply listening what is wrong with that vehicle. That's a very important skill when your car is broken down, isn't it? If I ever went to the garage and said, well, I'm getting ready to go to the garage this week, and I say, I hear a clunking in my car, and he says, well, listen, why don't you pull up your seat and let me exegete 1 Corinthians chapter 12 for you? I would say, thank you, but I'm not interested. I just want you to fix my car, right? His gift at that point would not be helpful. God says, I've given each one of you a different kind of gift, and each of those gifts will be used in a different kind of environment. So not every gift is going to be used inside these four walls. Some of you have a gift that will be used best in an office. Some of you have an ability that will be used best in the city. Some of you are best using your abilities in the woods. Some of you are best in a kitchen or in a church or in a construction site. God has given each one of His people an ability, and each one of those abilities finds its best place in a different spot. Now, Paul says this then. God gives us each a different kind of gift. There are different kinds of services or other different kinds of places where He uses gifts. And then He says this. God works in different ways, but it is the same God who does the work in all of us. In other words, there are different kinds of results. So, for instance, God gives someone the gift of helps. Right? They can work with their hands. They're a gifted contractor. When they are done, you will see a house that has been fixed. God gives some people the gift of wisdom or the gift of knowledge. When they are done using their gift, you will see questions that have been answered. God gives some people the ability to make great desserts. And when they're done, you'll see a belly that is full and somewhat bigger, right? God gives some people the gift of organization. And when they're done, everything is neat and in place and proper. See, God gives each one of us a different kind of ability or a different kind of gift. He gives us a place that it works best, in which it works best. And the results of these kinds of gifts are often different. So when I use my gift, the gift that God has given me, my gift is teaching, knowledge, and evangelism. When I use those gifts, you're blessed differently than you would be blessed by. Hopefully you're blessed, right? You're blessed differently than you would be blessed by someone who has the gift of help, someone who can step in and fix your car. God uses all of us to bless His church in different ways. But the truth is this, and this is where it gets really important. Paul said a spiritual gift is given to each of us. Read this with me, please. So we can help each other. God gave me some abilities, and He gave you some abilities. And the reason He gave us, we're all different, we all have different backgrounds, different stories, we have different skill sets, different passions, but God gave you something to do, a place to be, a thing to accomplish. And He said the reason that you have that is so that we can help each other. Now this is where it gets really important. You do not have to sacrifice your individuality to be a part of the church. Sometimes I think we have this idea that if I'm going to be a Christian, I got to be like everyone else. I've got to think like everyone else. I've got to dress like everyone else. I've got to listen to the same radio station that everyone else does. If I'm going to be a Christian, I got to sacrifice my individuality. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Bible said God has given each one of us a different kind of gift, but they all come from the same God. He's given each one of us a different kind of place in which to use that gift, but they all come from the same God. He will create different kinds of results from each one of us, but they all come from the same God. God gives you an ability, a set of skills, so that you can use them to help other people. And if you begin to sacrifice your individuality, you essentially look at God and say, you didn't know what you were doing anyways, I'm going to follow the lead of a strong personality in my church. That can't be. What makes the church so awesome, what makes God's family so awesome is our uniqueness, our individuality. God's family works best when each one of us understand and live out the thing that makes us unique. That's when you're most helpful. Listen, the church doesn't need 20 preachers. We don't need that. The church needs some people who know how to teach. But I'll tell you what else the church needs. The church needs some people who know how to fix things. Because sometimes there's people in the life of the church who need some things fixed. They're not calling the preacher on those days. Right? The church needs some people who can care for those who are sick. Not a really strong suit of mine. I'll show up, I'll be nice, I'll pray. Not something I'll wake up in the morning saying, I hope I get a call to go sit with someone who's sick today. But God has actually gifted some people like that in the church. And that's what it's all about. He gave you a gift so that you could serve this group of people, so that I can serve, so that together, as we serve, we get better. So I said this a couple weeks ago that church is not a theater. It's a family. So a theater is where hundreds of people sit and watch a handful perform. Right? And I expressed this a few weeks ago that I'm concerned that we have in our culture created a lot of theaters, right? And this is not God's best idea. Because the truth of the matter is this, gang. The person in your seat, go ahead and smack that person's leg. The person in your seat, right? Smack their leg. That person is an important part of the family. The person in your seat has been given an ability, has been given a gift, has been given a skill set that the entire church needs. And until that person in your seat engages that ability or engages that gift, there's going to be something that gets left out. The church is not a theater, it's a family where we're all working together, right? Look, it's not a show that just happens on Sunday morning. It's a family that does life together. The church is a group of friends that communicate throughout the week. The church are groups that play together and pray together and learn together and work together through the week. It's not a place where you just come and observe and leave. It's a place where you come and you plug in and you participate. Because that's when the best stuff happens. If you just stand back and observe, you miss the best stuff. I'm telling you. Like, it's so cool to be able to actually get involved with people outside of Sunday morning and begin to know their personalities and to know their gifts and to know their abilities and experience those kinds of relationships. That's where the best stuff happens. Now, I actually think that we need to begin to rethink church. So, some of you may have heard this before, but the Greek word that's translated church in the New Testament, does anybody know what it is? Like, get like 1,000 points if you know what it is, right? You've heard it.
Iglesia?
Ecclesia, right. So there's this Greek word. Paul spoke Greek. He wrote in Greek, Arabic, right, Greek. And it was a word called ecclesia. And here's literally what it means. The people who are called out. So an ecclesia could be like a PTA meeting. Right? An ecclesia could be a CrossFit group that meets on Saturday morning. An ecclesia could be a business meeting that happens at Panera Bread. It's a group who have been called out for a specific purpose, right? And Paul said, look, this is what the church is. It's a group of people who are called out. They're designated apart from everyone else to do a specific thing. And that thing happens to be following God, loving God, sharing God with others. Now, somehow, we've embraced the idea that the church is a building where we meet on Sunday morning. Right? Listen, just to make sure everybody's engaged, could you just look at the person next to you and say, it's not? We've got this idea that the church is a building where we meet on Sunday morning. But it's not. Listen, if this building got burned down, Church 180 would still exist. It would just meet in a different place, wouldn't it? Because the church is not these walls. If this church got destroyed, Church 180 would still continue to exist because the church is not a building. It's a group of people who are called out, who believe in Jesus, who are following His teaching, who are loving one another, who are having fun and doing important things, creating an environment that's healthy, growing, and full of love. This is what the church looks like. Scott Thompson is starting a group for guys who's going to meet throughout the week. That's the church. Ken and Kathy Kiefer are going to be having a group in their home that meet on a regular basis. That's the church. Holly Jordan is leading a ministry to the men's shelter, The Haven. She's building up people to be a part of that. That's the church. 180 University that meets here on Wednesday nights. That's the church. Rochelle and the group that you're leading at Evanport Elementary. That's the church. Jay and Cindy in the cafe. That's the church. 180 Kids meeting next door. That's the church, right? It's people getting together, serving one another. But let me just tell you something. One person cannot do it all. But all can do it all. Right? One person cannot build a place that is healthy, growing, and full of love. One person cannot do that. It takes a family, and that is everyone finding their place and doing their thing. So here's what I realized. Have you ever been or seen or maybe even been a part of a family where there's a really strong personality and everyone modifies their behavior to please that driving personality? Have you ever seen that? So two things are true about that family or that business or that church. Number one, it's boring. Number two, it's fake. Right? Because God put something unique inside of every single person. And when we align ourselves and try to fit into the mold of a superior and strong, maybe not superior, but a super strong, overbearing personality, it's fake and it's boring. And God did not create His church like that. He said, look, I've given each one of you something different. And I want you to live it out. I want you to discover it and live it big. And that's what makes my church an awesome place. And there's all kinds of diversity and there's all kinds of different opinions. And you may not like to eat what I like to eat. You might like McDonald's and I might just eat some kind of everything free, gluten-free, wheat-free, all that crap, right? But it just doesn't matter. We're all these wonderful, diverse, beautiful people in this room creating something healthy, growing, and full of love. And it only happens when you find your place and do your thing. And I just look at our church and I'm like, gang, Church 180 has everything and everyone we need to be a place that is healthy, growing, and full of love. We don't need, listen, please understand me, we don't need anything else or anyone else to be that. We can create a place that is different from the chaos in our world. We can create a place when people walk in, they're like, I can't believe the diversity. There's racial diversity, There's some poor people, there's some rich people, there's some people who are really jacked up, and there's some people who act like and kind of look like it's not really jacked up. There's people who vote, there's people who don't vote, there's people who like Clemson, and there's people who like all the other teams. You know, I mean, all kinds of, and that's the beauty of this church that God is creating. And we have all that right here in this room. I don't think we need to wait for anyone else. I don't think we need to wait for anything else. Here's how we get this done. Here's how we create a place that is healthy, growing, and full of love. That's a refreshing alternative to the chaos in our world. Here's how we do it. If every one of you, if every one of us in this room will say this one little sentence right here. I can't do it all, but I can do a little. Now, I heard some murmuring there. I don't know if y'all are like, oh, that's good. Amen. Or where we're going with that. All right? But this sentence is huge. For two reasons. Some people think they can do it all. There's a Greek word for that. You know what it's called? Of course you can't do it all. If one person tries to do everything, you will never create a place that's healthy, growing, and full of love. There will be a place where there's mistrust and abuse and neglect and burnout and frustration. One person cannot do it all. But every person can do a little. This statement reflects significance in that every person has something to do. Every person has been gifted and given an ability to do something. And it also reflects humility. I can't do it all. You have something that your spiritual family needs. And when you do your little bit and I do my little bit, we build something awesome. So, super practical, and then I want to tell you a story, and then I want you to hear a song. Right? How do we actually begin to live this out? I can't do everything, but I can do something. I can't do it all, but I can do a little. Two ideas. Number one, would you just begin, if you have been a part of Church 180 and you're like, I think there's potential here. Would you take some time to get to know some people? I just want to tell you right now, there are some pretty doggone awesome people around you. Right? I mean, so we see one another on Sunday mornings. But the best part doesn't happen on Sunday mornings. Can I get a witness? Right? Amen. The best part doesn't happen on Sunday mornings. Would you just take a little bit of time and get to know some people? And look, you know how to do this, right? It's as simple as this. Come a little early, stay a little late. Go to the Connection Center, see what's going on out there, show up to some of those events. 180 University on Wednesday nights. Be a part of a group that's going on, various groups that are happening. Take some time to know some people, and you'll find there are some amazing people in their life, and you will find that you need them. And you will also find that they need you. The second way to live this out is to take a spiritual gift test. If you just say, look, I don't know what my ability is. I don't know what my gift is. I don't know. We're going to post it on our Facebook page today, facebook.com/mychurch180. Take that test. Take a little bit of time. Take the test. And then share those results with someone. You could share them with me. You could share them with a volunteer. You could share them with someone that you meet, right? I did it. My results are teaching, knowledge, and evangelism. Right? You're going to take it. Your results are going to be different. And that's okay. That's what God has done. Now let me tell you a story. So I walk in the morning. And oh, by the way, so I was reading the biography of Thomas Jefferson, and he lost several children, right, at very young age. They just passed. And there was a point in his life where he had lost another child. As a politician, he was just taking a beating. Like, they were just destroying, and he hated being on the receiving end of criticism. So he'd lost another child. He was taking a beating politically, and there was a constant threat to this new young nation, America. The constant threat from the French, from the British as well, right? Like, what's going to happen here to this nation? Are we going to make it? he said during that time in his life, he said, I walked 6 to 8 miles every day. And in doing so, I chased away a lot of demons. That's pretty good. And so this is just bonus, not necessarily connected to anything. Just want to throw that out there. Some of you probably need to walk some more and chase away some demons. Amen? All right, okay. Here's how I got there. That was, you could make the case for ADHD based on what just happened right there, right? So I walk, and sometimes I walk early in the morning before it's light. Now, when I walk during the day when it's daylight out, I just put on a pair of headphones and just, boom, walk. When I walk before it's light, when it's dark out, I take a flashlight and a broken off shovel handle. Because you never know, it may need to be broken again if someone jumps out of the woods. You don't know what's happening, right? You don't know. And so I was walking this week with my flashlight and my broken off shovel handle, and there's this guy that every once in a while I'll pass. And so I passed him a couple weeks ago, and he said, why do you have a shovel handle? And I said, well, I don't know, just like in case a dog jumps out of the woods or something, ninjas, you don't know, right? So I passed him again. I think it bothers him that I carry a shovel handle. But I passed him this week. It was dark. I had my flashlight and my shovel handle, and he said this to me. He stopped me. And he said, you know what would make this safer? If a bunch of us were out here walking. And I can't stop thinking about that, because let me just flesh this out. Our world right now is dark, and it's scary, and it's dangerous, and there's a lot of people walking through the world with a flashlight and a shovel handle. And that can be intimidating. Like if I come across this older gentleman, and he's a little intimidated, obviously, by the shovel handle. He doesn't know that I'm a preacher. He just knows I look like a guy with a flashlight and a shovel handle. He doesn't know me. He just sees me as a potential threat. And what I realize is we live in a world right now where there's all kinds of great people out there. All we see is there's a flashlight and a shovel handle. And because it's dark, it's chaotic, it's scary, there's potential predators in the bushes, right? What would make this a safe place is if a bunch of us walked together. And what we would find is the guy with the shovel handle really isn't that bad of a guy. What we might find is that people that we look at now and judge as angry, misogynistic, enraged, don't get it, what we might find is that they're actually not a bad person after all. If a bunch of us walk together. Gang, this is what the church is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where a bunch of us walk together. And the more you get to know me, the more you may realize that, I don't necessarily like how Paul thinks. I don't always like how he talks. I may not like some of the things he does, but he's not a bad guy. And there are some things he can do that would help me. I may learn the same thing about you. But we'll never discover that until we begin to embrace the gift that God has given us and jump into the mix. And that's what the church does. And as you do your thing and I do my thing, we begin to create a place that's healthy and growing and full of love. A place that's an antidote to the chaos and craziness and the darkness in our world right now. And I think that's what God wants. But it really starts when you and I make a commitment to find our place and do our thing. So here's what I want to do. One of my favorite people in the world is Fitz. I like Fitz. And Fitz wrote a song a long time ago, and I like him to play it a lot. I ask him all the time to play it, even when it's not appropriate. I still ask him to play it. Today it's incredibly appropriate. He wrote a song that says, I need you, and you need me. And I just want us to take just a minute. We're just going to kind of take it down a notch. And I want us to think about this. There's someone in this room that needs what you have. Someone that you can help that I can't help. But you can. Every one of us in this room has something we can do. And when you do your thing, and I do my thing, we create a place. It's a
pretty doggone awesome.
I needed Pastor Paul, I needed his kids, I needed you. But when I look outside at the world and I saw Dunkin' Donuts over there and Baskin Robbins, and I love to eat, but I saw two businesses coming together. When the Word of God says two is better than one, iron sharpens iron. So a revelation came in my spirit that what would happen if I took the strength inside of you and built something, and you took something inside of me and built something. So that's what the song is all about. I need you, and you need me, to be the best you and me we can be. I am stronger with you than I am without you. That's why I need you, and you need me. There's a strength inside of you that I can use on the days when I am just feeling the blues. If we come together as one, there's nothing we can get done. That's why I need you, and you need me. I need you, and you need me. I have my struggles, you have yours too. We may wrestle in what we all should do. If we come together as one, there's nothing we can't get done. That's why I need you, you need me. I need you, and you need me. There are many things that I've done that are embarrassing to me. Someone in this room has the wisdom that would set me free. 'Cause you have stood where I am standing. You can help me stand too. That's why I need you. You need me. I need you. And you need me. I need you. You need me. 'Cause he's the best, you and me, that we can be. Two is still better than one. Iron still sharpens iron. So I need you. You need me. I need you. And you need me. I promise not to hurt you with words from my mouth. I'm gonna pray and get the facts straight before I blurt things out. We can come together as one. There's nothing we can't get done. That's why I need you. You need me. That's why I need you. And you need me. I need you on the cloudy days. I need you when I can't stand on what the word says. There's a strength inside of you, a strength inside of me. That's why I need you to pull on through these times. I need you, and you need me. I know some people may have hurt you, may have let you down. There's enough love in this room to get it right. If we come together as one, there's nothing we can get done. That's why I need you. You need me. I need you, and you need me. love you guys.